Hey, Rebel Rouser. I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7x7, episode number 1550. And it's Resistance Week here at Star Wars. Star Wars Resistance is debuting on October 7th, the new series from Lucasfilm Animation, and it is all about the Resistance and the First Order and the machinations that the two of them are getting up to find out just what exactly the First Order is up to in the years and months leading up to the events of The Force Awakens, and also what the Resistance is doing to, find out about what's going on with the First Order and what they're doing to counteract it. So this is something where, like with Clone Wars or like with Rebels, it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. And it is supposed to be targeted toward younger audiences. In fact, I think I've heard more about the targeting of younger audiences for Star Wars Resistance than I ever heard about from Star Wars Rebels or the Clone Wars per se. That being said, it's still essential knowledge. You may not be interested in checking it out as a Star Wars fan, actually watching the series or anything like that, but as far as the story of Star Wars goes, and as far as adding to the canon of our understanding of what is going on in that galaxy far, far away, Resistance still is must-watch viewing, as far as I'm concerned at least. And so there's going to be a fine line walked here on the podcast between, for all the folks who are just not into Resistance, I understand that completely, and I definitely don't want to turn you off from the podcast while we're covering it. And that being said, I think there are nuggets of information that you're going to appreciate having as far as Star Wars Resistance goes that will enhance your understanding of the time period around the sequel movies. Now, just as a reminder, and whether or not this is going to turn out to be accurate, we don't yet know. But as far as how close to the sequel movies this takes place, there was a discovery within the website code of StarWars.com, and this was back a couple of months ago, that suggested that it would be taking place, or at least the pilot of the show would be taking place only 6 months before the events of The Force Awakens. That, once it was discovered and put out on the internet, got changed, and so now inside the website code of StarWars.com, there is no reference to a time frame or anything like that. So it's hard to say for sure whether we can rely on that whole 6 months business or not. That being said, there's every reason to think that that's a possibility. And what's more is that once the events of Star Wars Resistance begin happening, it's entirely possible that we could have a first season of Resistance that only takes place on this refueling rig in the middle of nowhere, and that a second season would jump ahead to events after The Last Jedi. To look at Star Wars Rebels as an example, it took place, initially just a few years before the events of the original trilogy, and it progressed ever steadily closer to the point where we were 2 years or less prior to the events of the original trilogy throughout the 4 seasons of Star Wars Rebels. And of course, with the Clone Wars series, that situation was all confined within the 3-year time period in between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. So there's definitely an opportunity to see multiple seasons carrying out across multiple years, and therefore we could actually get some insight into the post-Last Jedi period of time during Season 2 of Star Wars Resistance, which incidentally would be scheduled to premiere before the premiere of Episode 9 in December of 2019. And another reason that it is going to be essential information for you as a fan of Star Wars stories is the fact that Poe Dameron is going to appear, Gwendolyn Christie as Captain Phasma is going to appear, and General Leia Organa is also going to be appearing as well. So, that's just the start. Kylo Ren is supposed to show up in this thing too, so the fact that we have major characters from the sequel movies actually making appearances in this series, I think that's another reason why it would be considered essential information, if not essential viewing. Now, the only wrinkle about that is that it's hard to believe for sure that Oscar Isaac is going to do multiple episodes of Star Wars Resistance. Same going for Gwendolyn Christie as Captain Phasma. When there have been major guest appearances on any Star Wars show, they usually tend to be for only 1 or 2 episodes. For example, Saw Gerrera appearing in Star Wars Rebels. Forrest Whitaker only did a couple of episodes for that. And same with James Earl Jones. He only did a couple of episodes as Vader for Star Wars Rebels too. So, there's only a limited amount we're going to get. However, General Leia Organa is at this point being voiced by Rachel Butera, who is an actress who has voiced Leia in the past, and so there is every reason to believe that Leia is going to be a character who does not show up once or twice, but who may actually be recurring throughout the series. And as far as Rachel Butera goes, there's a bit of a foofara happening around her now, and we'll talk about that briefly after the break. Stay tuned. Hey Rebel Rouser, I want to see your solo A Star Wars Story inspired custom designs of Nissan Titans and Altimas and Rogues. Check out sw7x7.com/custom to make your own designs, share them on social media, and tag us so that we can check them out. I've already done a Falcon and a Convex transport and a Cloud Rider swoop bike. I'm going to do a couple more. Check it out at sw7x7.com/custom and make your own with Nissan's fun Best in the Galaxy customizer tool. And hey, don't forget Solo A Star Wars Story is out on digital, Blu-ray, and new on 4K Ultra HD as well. Welcome back. So the thing with Rachel Butera, she posted a video on Twitter where she did an impression of Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, and was basically making fun of her voice. I guess she has a condition called vocal fry, or at least speaks with something called vocal fry, and it's, not your typical voice. At least Butera believed that it was an unusual voice for somebody of Dr. Ford's stature and played around with it on Twitter. Now, she alleges that she was not trying to make light of the situation that's happening on Capitol Hill whatsoever, and there are some folks who have commented saying that, satire is dead. The idea that Butera could actually be satirical in her, commentary on Dr. Ford and her voice. Well, let me tell you, first of all, that's not satire by any stretch of the imagination. And anybody who is portraying what Butera did as satire is absolutely incorrect and does not understand what satire is. So that's number one. Number two, regardless of the politics of the situation and regardless of whose story you believe, the fact of the matter is that deciding to make fun of the voice of a woman who went into a very public forum to talk about a very personal and harrowing experience is at best in extremely poor taste, and at worst is just plain horrible. Now, as of the recording of this episode, which is Sunday evening, there's been no official word about anything happening to Butera as a result. There are a lot of people who are actually calling for her to be removed from Star Wars Resistance and who are using hashtags like #NotMyLeia, for example. There have been a lot of different voice actors who have portrayed Leia Organa in cartoons previously, so it's not like they would not be able to find a suitable replacement. I guess the question would be whether they could find a suitable replacement quickly enough, or, how extensive Butera's appearances are in Star Wars Resistance episodes that have been recorded to date. Butera did issue an apology for posting the video prior to then shutting down her social media accounts, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And so far, like I said, there's been no word yet, but considering what happened with James Gunn and the resurfacing of controversial tweets of his from many years ago, at this point it seems like it's just a matter of time before we hear Disney making a move about this. It remains to be seen, though. We will keep an eye on that whole situation too. Anyway, that is going to do it for the episode today. Thank you so much for joining me for it. If you are not subscribing, hey, please subscribe. Make sure you get the next one delivered to you right away. And hopefully you'll like the podcast enough to consider supporting it as well at patreon.com/SW7x7. For now, though, it just remains for me to say, may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
This podcast is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2018 Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.